Welcome to this explainer on the architecture of self-belief. Have you ever wondered why, even when you've got all the right skills, the tools, and the perfect opportunities lined up, things sometimes just don't pan out? Well, it turns out our unconscious beliefs are literally dictating our life outcomes. Today, we're going to look at the very blueprint of our minds. We'll visualize exactly how an unconscious saboteur might be operating completely in the background, and more importantly, learn how to spot it. Okay, let's dive right into this. The core, absolute foundational rule of self-belief, the one thing required for any kind of success, is incredibly simple. Believe that you are good enough. Now, I know, it sounds deceptively simple, right? Almost like a cliche you'd read on a bumper sticker. But as we unpack the architecture of this whole concept, you'll see that this single sentence is the bedrock upon which literally everything else in your life is built. If this foundation has even a hairline crack in it, the entire structure of your goals and ambitions is instantly at risk. It's definitely not just a motivational phrase, it is a strict psychological prerequisite.
See, we so often think the hard part of any goal is the execution phase. The late nights, the physical grit, delivering that final presentation. Actually, scratch that. The critical psychological moment, the true make or break point of failure or success, happens long before the actual task or achievement even begins. The sabotage doesn't start at the finish line, it starts right at the starting line, entirely within your own internal dialogue.
Section 1. The Anatomy of Doubt. The Cascade of Ifs. Just feel the compounding weight of these thoughts as we go through them. First, if you feel you are not enough, boom, that's the initial crack. Then, if you feel you do not deserve it, now you're piling a really heavy layer of guilt or unworthiness right on top of that insecurity. And finally, if you see only your limitations. At this point, your focus has completely shifted away from your potential and it's permanently locked onto your flaws. Doubt cascades. It's not just one random passing negative thought. It's a whole series of internal conditions that rapidly build upon one another, narrowing your vision until failure literally seems like the only logical outcome.
And this brilliantly illustrates how we constantly stand at a crossroads of mindset. Over on one side, we have the destructive mindset, analyzing how you would fail. This is exactly where that cascade of ifs leads you. You end up using your own intelligence and energy to meticulously plan out your own defeat. But on the flip side is the constructive mindset, analyzing how you would overcome the challenges. Because look, the presence of challenges isn't the issue here. The issue is whether your brain is busy plotting your downfall or engineering your victory.
Moving into Section 2, the mechanics of sabotage, preparing for failure. This psychological progression is a predictable, almost mechanical sequence. Step 1, feeling undeserving. It usually starts as a quiet, internal emotion. Then, Step 2, analyzing limitations. That raw emotion turns into a rigorous intellectual exercise. Your brain actively starts searching for the evidence to prove you right, obsessing over what you lack instead of what you have. And then we hit Step 3. Because you've convinced yourself you don't deserve it, and because you've logically mapped out your failure, the ultimate behavior happens. You just give up, right in the middle. The sabotage is complete. It's kind of like buying a really expensive pair of running shoes, mapping out a full 5K route, and then quitting on Tuesday just because it drizzled. You walk away before the goal is reached, perfectly validating every single doubt you started with.
So the crucial point is, if you are engaging in that cascade of doubt, you are preparing for failure. Harboring these doubts doesn't just mean you're a little nervous or being cautious. No, it means you are actively orchestrating your own defeat. You are literally strapping on the heavy armor of failure before the battle has even commenced. It is a proactive, albeit completely unconscious, preparation to lose.
All right, Section 3, the gravity of self-belief, the unconscious downward drag.
If you fundamentally feel you aren't good enough, you're going to experience what's called the unconscious pull. This is defined as the psychological act of pulling yourself to the exact same level that you believe in, and the level you're comfortable in. Think about that for a second. Your mind literally forces your reality to match your expectations. If your internal belief is low, your mind acts like a massive gravitational field, pulling your actions, your choices, and ultimately your results right down to meet that low expectation. You simply won't allow yourself to outperform your own self-image.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that specific word, dragging. Unconsciously dragging yourself to a lower standard. It's a heavy, deeply physical word, isn't it? It implies real resistance. It implies that your natural trajectory might actually be upward, headed toward success and truly great things. But because you secretly feel you don't deserve it, you are actively dragging yourself down. You literally become the dead weight around your own ankles. It's an incredibly powerful, sobering visualization of how self-sabotage actually operates in our day-to-day lives.
And here is the ultimate tragic irony of this entire process. You drag yourself to a lower standard which you are not happy about in the first place. You might naturally think that returning to a level you're, comfortable in would bring you some peace, but it doesn't. This self-sabotage doesn't bring actual comfort, it just strands you in a really unhappy reality. You pull yourself down to a standard of living, a career level, or a relationship dynamic that you actively dislike, all because it matches the flawed blueprint of your internal self-belief. Basically, you are choosing familiar misery over unfamiliar success. Crazy, right?
As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to really, truly consider this. We've seen how the architecture of self-belief is built, how doubt cascades out of control, and how a lack of belief acts as a literal gravitational drag on your potential. So I'll leave you with this final reflection. Are you unconsciously dragging yourself to a lower standard? Take a hard, honest look at the architecture of your own mind and make absolutely sure you aren't the one preparing for your own failure. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and keep learning.